answer it twice.
They want to make sure you got it right.
That's right. All right. And we are, looks like it's going to work. So we'll just pretend it is. I'm Mac McCullough. I'm the librarian at Willard Library, and you are here for our this week's episode of Stories at Sundown, live from Burley Corners. My guest this evening is Jose Orozco. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, sir.
All right. Jose is the executive director of Voces. It's organization's been around since 2007, and they advocate for the interest and well-being of the Latinx community in Greater Battle Creek. Jose is a native of Texas, and he's made his way here through a journey that he's going to tell us a little bit about tonight. He's been a counselor, he's been a school administrator, but at his core, he considers himself a teacher. So, welcome, Jose.
Thank you, Mac. Thank you. Muchas gracias. I might slide in a Spanish word here and there just because that makes me feel more comfortable when I'm able to mix them both, the English and the Spanish. And you said that this was going to be a plática, more of a conversation. So I think if I'm allowed to throw in a Spanish word here and there, I'd appreciate it.
I encourage it. In fact, in full transparency, Jose and I discussed, of course, I thought of it too late, but discussed how we might be able to do a bilingual conversation, but we're just going to wing it, which is the beauty of it. So we got a lot to talk about, Jose. Thank you. But let's start with that. When we sat down and talked about doing this show, you said at your core you're a teacher, and I want to know what that means and how that shows up in your work.
Yeah. So thanks, Mac, for doing this, and thank you to the library and the community, and for those folks that are watching us out in the virtual, that are watching us in the virtual world. Bienvenidos, welcome. So I come from humble beginnings, Mac, from a small town in South Texas, right off of the South Texas Mexico border, about 45 miles north of the Rio Grande River. Small little town called San Perlita, Texas. Population about 504, right around there, 504. It's a real small, tiny town. My dad is born and raised there in South Texas. He would be a Texican. That's what I referred to myself as well, a Texican. My mom is originally from Matamoros, Mexico, right on the other side of the Rio Grande River. And those are my two folks. I got an older brother and a younger sister. And I think that's who kind of fuels me is partly when I was a youngster was my family, and that's been one of my biggest influencers. We were instilled since a young age, education is something that we need to value.
Yeah.
And both my mom and dad dropped out of high school, but they recognized the importance of an education. My mom was a seamstress, and my dad was a day laborer. I'm not gonna be out of the sake of time and maybe a little bit of embarrassment. I'm not gonna go too much into detail of my youth, but I'll just say I was a bit of a rambunctious youth. I in school I pretty much ran the gamut of suspensions, expulsions, SWATs a little bit. However, the school, my parents, and the community never gave up on me. That they never gave up on me. The school, parents, and community. They knew I needed some extra guidance, and because of all them, I think that's what has me here talking to you today, Mac. I'm able to brag that I have a bachelor's, that I have a master's, but that wasn't just me alone. It was my parents, the school, the community, all coming together. And because of that, I'm here to talk to you today. I've worked as a teacher, as you mentioned, a GED instructor, counselor, assistant principal, school consultant, but now I'm Voces' new executive director. Over this past year, that's what I've been, is Voces' new executive director. And I feel like I'm still new because I started February 21st. 3 weeks later, the pandemic hit. And we know that in order for an executive director, to be successful, a lot is based on relationships. And I haven't been, I feel like I wasn't dealt a fair hand, but it is what it is. And I'm doing my best. Now, where I envision Voices, or how I envision Voices is to be that the bringing together, the culmination of the community members, business partners, and parents, clients that we have, to see how we can assist the community, the Latino community at large, just like the way mine did for me when I was needing that support.
Yeah.
Because it does have tremendous impact when you have the schools and the parents and the communities coming together. There can be tremendous impact. When I first started at Voces, Mac, I think it was my first week there, I gave you a call and said, Mac, I've got a doctor who we need to present a book to. And I'm so glad that I was able to meet her, and you were able to come in, and we were able to talk about her being an author. And her example is she learned or she studied English through Voces. And I think that's one of the little branches that Voces is able to contribute back to the community, and meanwhile assist our community. That ESL piece, I think is huge. And back to that doctor, she was able, right now, currently she's wrapping up med school. She'll be a fully fledged doctor, and because we were able to remove some obstacles or barriers so that she could accomplish her goals. So that's basically where I'm at, where the organization is at. We're constantly on the lookout for opportunities for us to be engaged and see how we can be engaged and give back to the community, so that we do leave this place a little better than we found it. So thanks for inviting me, Mac.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to have you. And I'm just going to remind our audience that if you have questions, you can post them on Facebook and Twitter, and we'll be happy to share them with Jose, and you can just chime in, or you can just chime in and say, hey.
Hey, be careful on that one, because I invited my brother and sister, so who knows? Silly question.
please chime in. So let's just for the audience that doesn't know or has only vague ideas, what are some of the services that Voces provides, and what do they do?
So what we do is our mission, right, to provide opportunities and resources for the LatinX community. In a nutshell, that's the gist of it. But what do we do is we want to do our part of contributing back to the community for years to come. And how we do that is through our education department. We're able to provide after-school enrichment programs for our youth in the elementary, middle school, and soon to be high school. We're getting ready to relaunch that program. We also provide through our language department, we're able to provide interpreting and translating services for the community. So if anybody has any documents that they need to translate, send them over. If somebody has some parent letters that need to go home for the schools, we're also able to do interpreter in-person interpretations. So if we need to go and help out at a PTO night, or if we need to go for a medical clinic, or if we need to go and interpret for maybe an eye vision screening, we're able to go alongside our clients and provide them that interpretation service. And we provide that for our clients, but we also provide that for the community at large. So however it may help to bridge that and removing that language barrier, that's what we want to do as well. So we also serve as a bridge for the community. And then our other department is going to be our community connections department, which is one of our thriving departments right now because of everything that's going on. We've got folks that are coming in for unemployment assistance with those applications, with MDHHS applications, and now we've hit the hot season of FAFSA applications. So that department right now is seeing a lot of action, more than usual. As a matter of fact, I just left a little bit ago helping out a client who's struggling with that unemployment piece because of the language barrier. Quite honestly, that's what it is right now. And we've got to be that bridge for our community, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah. I don't remember a time, it doesn't seem, that immigration hasn't been such a lightning rod issue, but it seems worse now, or it just seems more palpable. And I'm curious about the challenges that you're seeing and how that's playing out with the people you serve. Has it been tougher, since the pandemic and the last few years?
Wow, that's a big one.
It's a big question.
Well, the public charge, which is basically families that were receiving assistance or children that were receiving assistance got scared. Were scared a couple of years back with our past president when he came into office, and because they felt that was gonna kind of oust them or have them kind of raise their hand and say, hey, I'm here, and put their citizenship status in jeopardy. So due to that public charge, folks got scared. They were very scared in that last term because of so much uncertainty. Now here, this past March, the public charge has been reversed, and the uncertainty is still lingering as far as that public charge piece. And our folks are still a little hesitant to seek out resources that historically they would get, but in all here these past couple of years, it's been a little scary because you don't know how that's going to end. I think immigration here in Michigan, even I compare it to Texas, and I see two sides, even just in those two states. I'm going to go to what I know. High school students seeking financial aid in Texas will get assistance from the state of Texas. So a student may be working in Texas. He may be a dreamer, and he's working after school at McDonald's, and he graduates his senior year. The state of Texas will give him some financial aid to go to college. In Michigan, a student can work at McDonald's, graduate, pay taxes and everything, but the state of Michigan will not award him any financial aid to go to college, which is, for me, it's almost like a slap in the face, because how can we support students? How can we tax families and students, but yet we can't support them when it's time to go back to college? We can. There's so many different facets to that immigration question. I a year ago, last April, I was able to go visit some family in South Texas. I have family right on the other side of that river. Went to go visit them, and on the way back, I saw something I had never in my life seen before. And that's normal, what I just described. Growing up as a kid in South Texas, it was normal on the weekend to go across to Mexico to visit aunt and uncle, maybe to go buy some medicine or get some cheap dental work. And those winter Texans who may be watching this show or may watch it later know what I'm talking about. So what I saw was tents, a tent city. Those tents pitched right on that bridge, trailing all the way back into Mexico. It was just something that I had never seen, and to know that there's kids of all ages and moms and dads, they're living in tents because wherever they're coming from, and it's not necessarily Mexico, wherever they're coming from is worse than where they're at right now, than where they were at right there on that border in those tents. I'm just thinking, like, man, how wild, how tough those situations that they're leaving to come here, to make all those sacrifices and to come here, how bad it must have been in order for them to leave, to come here. And those are things that go through my head because my mom did it. My family has done it. So I know very little I have a little taste of what that feels like, Matt, but to have to go your whole life and then maybe all of a sudden you find out that you weren't born in this country, and people are telling you you don't belong, or you start hearing comments that are negative because of something that was out of your control. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
And you know, I mentioned that I was a counselor, and as a mental health counselor, you have to deal with that trauma. You have to deal with some of that fallout from kiddos who were 3 years old to grown men or women that are finding out these things at those ages, and you're having to help them process that, because it does trigger a lot of some of these things that you hear on the news, and just things that are happening trigger things that affects people, that if they're not processed or addressed, can come back and haunt them later.
Yeah, yeah. I know from talking to you before that children and young people are in your heart, and what is that experience like for the young people that you support at Voces in Battle Creek? How does that affect their ability to do well in school? How does that affect? It sounds like you need to provide a lot of support just to make people feel safe.
Yeah, that's what Voces that's what Voices kind of prides themselves in, is that welcoming and making them feel like they belong and it's safe. I publicize, that when there's a commercial that I did with Battle Creek Unlimited that talks about me texting with the chief of police, with Chief Locker. And I think, and he's invited me into his house, into the police station to go and visit it and say,
Yeah.
Jose, your community is welcome here. Here's a community room for you guys to come and borrow. And even with all that in mind, Mac, I know my community doesn't feel 100% safe. So then we at Voces have to do our best to provide that for them. And one real mini example is that English and Spanish. When you come into Voces, you're going to hear English and Spanish. You might hear my Spanish music going, or you might hear a little bit of English Friday afternoon getting ready music. It just depends what kind of mood I'm in. But that's what I want the community to know they're going to walk into. They're going to walk into a space that nobody's going to make fun of them if they speak broken English or if they speak broken Spanish. I want them to feel safe. And I try to express that with our parents, especially because I feel that if we can make them feel safe, then they know that they're sending their students and children for those after school enrichment programs to a safe place. And I think that's where we can authentically engage in some meaningful conversations to truly make some shifts in our community.
Yeah. And so I ask you about the kids, but I also and safety applies to all ages, obviously. But it must be really difficult to be a parent in an environment where you don't necessarily always feel welcome. You're worried about your kids feeling welcome. I mean, every parent worries about their kids, right? I worry about my adult son.
Yeah.
How do you help parents through that?
It's difficult for them, and it's scary. So how you help them is you try to help them be the best prepared they can be. And I wish I could say it's all things that I've learned in a book or no, some of it was in talking to community members. When one example that I'm talking about being prepared, and you're gonna say, "Wow, I met a man who carried around quetzals." Quetzal is a denomination of money in Guatemala. So it's a denomination of money in Guatemala, and he carries it in his wallet. And I said, "Why do you carry that money? I think it's cool, right? It's got a bird on there." And he said, "Well," he said, if ICE catches me and they deport me, dollars aren't worth anything in my country. So when I get over there, I need to be prepared." And that's what he had in his wallet. So he's prepared. And in that same conversation, we've had some tough conversations in being prepared. A lot of that was just a real mini detail, but there's some other pieces that we have to do extra just to be prepared, just in case. And what that leads to is a little feeling of, well, if this happens, at least I know my family or my kids are going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives them a little bit of relief. We're able to at Voces also bring in some know your rights programs. You know, as far as if something was to happen or somebody was to come knocking on your door, again, getting folks prepared.
Yeah.
Not and when I say that, some people might, because I'm in my past year in the community, I've learned and there's going to be some nasty comments thrown out, and I think let's talk.
Yeah.
You know where Voces is, 520 West Michigan. And I'm not saying to incite anything or anything, but I'm
No.
saying let's just have some meaningful dialogue. Let's hear different sides. Let's hear different perspectives. Let's wrestle with those ideas, because that's only going to make us all grow smarter. I think we're going to be better people. And sometimes it's okay to agree to disagree. That's fine. So I think with our adults, it's that constant engaged conversation that has to be relevant and ongoing.
Yeah. 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 The question, one of the questions I wanted to ask you, and this just kind of brings it up for me right here. It feels like, trying to create a sense of home and a sense of belonging. And so I just wanted to ask you that question. Uh, what makes a place a home? Because you said it at the top when you were talking about families who are living in really dire conditions, knowing that they left something much worse. They're in search, but they had to leave a home. Um, so how do you define that?
Huh. There's this real, I don't know where I read this, Mac, but home is where the heart is.
Yeah.
Right? I saw that somewhere. Then I'm sure that Google home is where the heart is. And it took me some time to make that transition, in all honesty. For me, in leaving South Texas, and I talk about South Texas, anybody that's watching from Texas knows the valley. It consists of 5 counties in the very southern tip of Texas. That was home for me, man. So when I moved to Michigan 8 years ago, I found myself often saying, I can't wait to go back home, or let's hurry up and finish what we're doing this right now so we can get back home. But and I'll be real transparent here. I struggled a little bit finding my niche, my role in West Michigan. Partly was because of that mindset I had of home was somewhere else. But in all honesty, my mind finally came to rest when I stepped back and I said, wait a minute, this is home. Where's it at? Right here. Wherever these guys are, that's home.
Yeah.
That's home. And I think with the folks in our community that we work with, sometimes that's hard. Sometimes that's hard when mom or dad made a sacrifice to come to this country to make it better for their family's future. And you're here all alone. It's going to be hard for you to call this place home.
Yeah.
So I think, as cliche as it is, I really do think that home is where the heart is. And if it feels right, and you're doing things right, and it feels like it's being reciprocated, welcome home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome
So,
home.
do you feel at home now?
I think I'm getting there, Matt, in all honesty. I honestly do. I think Battle Creek has made an impression on me that no other town in Michigan, in the state of Michigan, has. I think it's real. I like it. It's raw. Um, I like engaging with diverse community members from any of our communities. I enjoy meeting with our Burma folk. I enjoy meeting over with the African American community. I enjoy meeting with our I guess, do we say white? I'm trying to be PC here.
It's
But
the internet. You don't have to be PC.
As I was talking to one of my younger staff members, and I was reminded of when my family got their first color TV. Our first TV. And it just so happened it was color, and it only had the local channels. But I loved that PBS. I loved Mr. Rogers. I'm admitting it publicly, right? He was one of my role models, man.
Mr. Rogers is cool now.
Right. He was one of my role models, and I think, was that like fair? Was that, what was that land called where he would Make Believe Land?
The land of
Make Believe or something like that.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, land of make believe or neighborhood of make believe, something like that. I don't know. Yeah.
I'm thinking that alongside the Mr. Rogers neighborhood, why can't it happen here? Or why can't we at least strive for it?
Yeah.
I the other day was in the office, and one of my staff members came by with her dog. She peeked in through the window. Hey, how's it going? Showed up her dog. I said, this is cool. like I can't, walking downtown and seeing Mac and honking at him and saying hi, seeing La Loma Construction, Tortitac, all that. The more I'm meeting people, the more I get out and learn this community, the more it's growing on me. Because this past year hasn't been easy to get out there and really meet people and learn people. It hasn't been easy.
Yeah, I mean, you did get a raw hand there. I mean, tough to enter a community and to make all those connections that you need to make, and the relationships you need to build, and then have this barrier. But hey, we have this.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the coolest things I've seen since I've been here in Battle Creek, Mac. So my hat's off to you.
Oh,
and when I saw you doing these conversations, I think it's neat because we're learning about each other. Last week was Justin. A couple of weeks back, who did I hear? Damon, I think, was on there. Tao. So it's fun to see all these different community represent, all the different community represented, and then the history piece that you added on is a whole nother level. You guys have like your own. Y'all gonna have to get your own PBS station with all the good stuff you got going on at the library.
Well, thank you. That's so nice of you. Thank you. It's a lot of fun, and I enjoy these too. So let's not let the whole time go by without talking about books, because we keep talking about books when we're offline. So, and I was, you recommended Rising Out of Hatred, right?
Rising Out of Hatred. Where's it at? There it is.
Yeah. We've had a few comments, by the way, and thank you, Leah. And I don't know if you saw Lynn's comment, Lynn Ward Gray. That was to you too. And I think you had a relative calling out another relative or something. Anyway, back to your books. Back to
Mac,
your book.
real quick though, on Lynn Ward Gray, her husband, Al, right? Sam, not Al. So Sam, I was at a vaccine clinic, and he and I had lunch. It was just a real cool happenstance lunch with a random community member. And that's why I'm saying this place is slowly growing on me, because I get to meet people like him who didn't even know him, nothing. We sat there and broke bread together.
Yeah.
And I think that's big. We need more of those kinds of things in the community. But yeah, shout out to Sam.
To Sam.
Rising Out of Hatred, The Awakening of a Former White Nationalist. What the heck is Jose doing reading that book?
I'll answer your own question.
And I think after seeing your post and that big old word, inquisitive, whoa, that's a fancy one for me, Mac, an inquisitive. But that's just a fancy one, version of my mom saying when I was little, que ponía gorro, right? Que ponía gorro. That means I gave her a headache because I would ask so many questions. I never stopped asking questions. She said, and she tells me these stories that she remembers driving, and I was here in her ear. What's this? What's that? How do you say this? How do you say that? And that's led me to be who I am today. I'm constantly asking questions because I feel that's how we learn. And I tell kids and adults, ask. If you don't know, ask. We have to ask. No se queden con la duda. Don't stay with that doubt. Ask your questions. So the book, Rising Out of Hatred, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. And I don't know exactly how I ended up coming across this one. But yeah, it's about Derek Black, who renounced who renounced what he was born into be.
White nationalism.
Which was white national. Thank you for saying that. I still struggle with some of these words because well, so he was born into that. He was supposed to be the prodigy, David Duke's grandson.
Godson.
Godson, right? Godson. And
I read it more recently than you, so I remember more.
No, thank you for no, but you know the funny thing about that one is that Derek's mom was partners with Derek Duke with Derek Black's dad and David Duke. Anyway, so this young man was born to be a white nationalist. He was the next child prodigy. At the age of 10 or 11, he was writing an ugly internet website, all sorts of ugly stuff, and had kids. But it was for kids. That website was for kids to keep on growing future white nationalists. And he goes off to college to I believe it was in Florida,
Florida,
Newfound College or New Hope College, something like that. And while there, he gets tested. He gets tested in. I just read that comment. You know this thing is live, Matt. So he gets tested because there's certain individuals that gave him those nasty comments and telling him mean things. You don't belong and things like that. So when somebody finally took a chance on him, and I believe it was either a Muslim or a Jewish young man who had a certain practice, a weekly ritual of friends that invited him in and included him. I think slowly they started chipping away at him. It didn't happen overnight.
No.
But the power of those relationships that he made in that group, I think, is what largely influenced him renouncing white nationalism. And I think how hard, how tough that must have been for him. How do you go against what you were born to do, what you were groomed to do, and then to disappoint your parents because you're going against everything that your parents taught you to be? It's tough.
Yeah. The central character in the book, as you say, I mean, and one of the things that I found so fascinating about it was, because you just said, you used the word inquisitiveness, getting curious about why people think what they think instead of making assumptions about why they think what they think. That's part of it. And this character, he was brilliant. He was just raised to believe something, and I'm not saying that he was brainwashed. He wasn't until he was exposed to other people and began to develop relationships with them, and then fell in love. Right. That always has a lot to do with things too. He actually went to graduate school at Western Michigan University, there in Kalamazoo. So there's a Michigan connection too. But yeah, what you just said about this need to belong, it's an incredibly strong pull, and it's really difficult to give that up. even in the face of facts that say that, you know, what you believe is wrong. So it was a slow, long process for him. But it's a powerful book. It's written by, what's the author's name?
Eli Saslow.
He's a Washington. He was or is a Washington Post reporter who wrote this book.
Mac, and you bring up it's that idea of sensing of belonging, and I think for me personally on my journey, this is one just comes to mind when I joined a fraternity at Wabash College in Indiana. I joined a fraternity coming from the Valley in South Texas, not even knowing what a fraternity really was. I didn't know I was going to be cleaning the floor with a toothbrush. But what the fraternity did for me was they instantly became my family. It was instant. It was that sense of belonging. And I think about where I was at on my journey in life. And had I been in Los Angeles or maybe one of these bigger towns, Mac, I would have joined a gang.
Yeah,
I would have, because of that sense of belonging and that necessity to belong, to know that you've got friends, that you got people backing you up. So that fraternity instantly became my family. And I think that sense of belonging takes us back to even where we started this conversation, the importance of community and parents, because not all of us have what I've been fortunate to have is the two sets of parents. I was lucky enough to be raised by two parents. So then does that mean they're not going to get a fair chance? No, that means we've got then to provide even more support. We've got to be that extra family, that extra parent that an individual may need so that they do feel like they belong and they're successful and they're striving to be the best that they can be. I think when Derek Black in the book realized that, he unleashed some potential within him that now he's able to write a book. He's able to write a book like this and be okay with it, because when this author first reached out to him, you hear it in the prologue, Derek Black told him, no, I don't want anything to do with that, and don't call me anymore. But I think he started doing some soul searching, started looking at what was going on in the rest of the world, and realized it was almost his responsibility to do something and say something. And that's his book. So I think even now, back to my role now at Voces, sometimes, Mac, I hesitate or I'm worried a little, like, should I say something? Should I speak up? And that's when I really enjoy the staff I work with, and they tell me things like, Jose, if you don't speak up, then who is? Wow. So that goes back to Derek Black in this book. You know what? We have to do our part. Each and every one of us has to do our part to leave it a little better than how we found it.
Yeah. And the key to that is being curious.
Yeah, I think so, man.
Yeah.
I think so.
Question yourself and talk to other people.
And,
I wanted to
yeah.
Go ahead.
No,
please.
I was going to say, and don't be scared of the answer, even though it might rock your world a little bit.
Yeah, we all need that.
That's how we grow.
And, you know, after our conversation, I was inspired to pick up a new book, and I'm just going to put it up here so you can we got lots of copies of this, Infinite Country by Patricia Engel. Just finished it. And it tells the story of a Colombian family, mostly through the eyes of the youngest daughter, about their journey. The parents in another time, they come to the United States from Colombia. It's the man's idea, and the woman wants to stay, the wife in Bogota. But they get here and they begin to work, and the idea is that they would send money home and eventually go back. But, you know, life has a tendency to grab you, right? And they had children, and then the father was deported. Was caught and was deported, and the central character was sent back to Bogota to live with him because mom couldn't work and take care of an infant. And it's that story, and it starts with Talia, the central character, having been incarcerated because she sees a man kill a kitten, with scalding water or scalding oil, and she's working in a kitchen, and she goes in the kitchen and throws it in his face, and so she ends up being incarcerated, and that's the beginning of the story. But it's such a brilliantly written book, and it really touches on these themes that we've talked on today about what it means to belong,
Yeah.
what is home, how do you define that, how do you leave one, how do you leave your family, how do you leave your homeland, and how do you find peace, and so it's not a I like thin books. I do like thin books, and this one is one that you can read over a weekend, and I think it's a great book. You should read it too. I think you'd enjoy it.
I'm gonna read it. It's in the mail. It's in the mail.
All right. So
that idea of leaving home, Mac, I think that's one that oftentimes it's not an option sometimes for all of us.
Yeah.
Sometimes if I don't know, I think just some of the families that I've worked with and some of the students that I've worked with, and some of them don't have an idea of what home is. Yeah. Because as far as they can remember back, they know what they know right now, and it's about survival. It's survival. They haven't had an opportunity to really reflect and kind of contemplate some of these pieces. It's so often constantly survival, and I think the ones who really appreciate that is the parents. For some reason, the parents in working with kids, the parents recognize that. So I think we just got to lean into our elders for some of these conversations, and that's what I think too. Like as a kid, sitting around and listening to the grandparents and the aunts and uncles talk, and even me in my counseling piece, I remember helping out a student one time. Had a beautiful plan, graduation, had it all figured out for him. And he crumbles up a paper and throws it on my desk. What happened? And his dad says, hang on. He said, let him go. Because it was his dad and I and the son. And the dad says, cada cabeza es otro mundo. That means every mind is a different world. Cada cabeza es otro mundo. And I think that's so true. Everybody is on their own journey. We respect them, guide them, hope that they make the best decision. But every mind is a different world. And I think that's some pretty beautiful, powerful words that I got taught from a fellow student's dad. And that's where I'm at. You say the inquisitive, and that's where I'm at. I'm always looking, asking questions, seeing who's making sense and what doesn't make sense. Maybe file that somewhere separate, and we'll see if we can sift through that later. But I really do value my elders. I respect that. That was one value that I was grown up with. Respect your elders, and that's a big one in our culture. Is respect your elders at all costs. Respect your elders. So maybe that's why that one hits home so much. Every mind is a different world.
Yeah. Jose, it's been such a pleasure to have you on tonight. Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. I'll have you back sometime.
We'll have to do it in person there so I can feel the warmth of that fire.
Yeah. Well, that's coming. Someday we're going to do things in person. So
okay.
All right. Well, Jose, thank you so much. Viewers, thank you. Thank you for your questions and your comments. Next week, our guest is T.R. Shaw. T.R. Shaw, from a long line of, well, a family funeral director, family business, one of the oldest in Battle Creek, if not the oldest. He'll correct me if I'm wrong next week. But he's also written a book recently, and we're going to talk to him a little bit. So that'll be next week. And then the following Monday, we are going to have another peeks into the past and look at the history of movie theaters and a little bit of civic theater, too, in downtown Battle Creek. So that'll be a lot of fun. There used to be a lot of theaters in downtown Battle Creek. So we'll take a look back at that. So thank you so much, Jose, staying on. And the rest of you, have a wonderful evening. It's beautiful out there. Enjoy.
Buenas tardes. See y'all.